Even though Twilight Chronicle is technically an idle RPG, don't let that fool you. This game still expects you to think smart when it comes to team building. You can't just throw random characters together and hope for the best. As you move through the campaign and jump into different game modes, having the right lineup makes a huge difference, and that's exactly where this tier list comes in. In this video, we're breaking down the Twilight Chronicle characters in a simple, no-nonsense way, so you know who's actually worth investing in and who you can safely skip. Whether you're just starting out or trying to push further without wasting resources, this tier list is here to save you time, frustration, and a lot of bad decisions. So sit back, let's talk characters, and build a team that actually carries you. I'm quickly moving on to the video, and I'm ranking characters in Twilight Chronicle. Before we start, if you enjoy these types of list videos, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. Enjoy watching.
My friends, only 0.1% of viewers subscribe. If you like this type of content, please do not forget to subscribe to the channel. Thank you in advance for your support.
The characters in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Dracula, Orpheus, and Bathory. If your roster ever looks at you like, please don't make me carry this fight, welcome to the C tier, the land of technically usable, emotionally disappointing characters in Twilight Chronicle. These heroes are not completely useless, but let's just say the game offers you much better ways to spend your hard-earned resources, sometimes even with lower rarity units doing the same job with less drama. Let's start with Dracula, the reclusive kindred god who really wants to be scary, but mostly ends up being confusing. On paper, he can apply cowardice to reduce enemy ultimate damage and bleed to slowly drain their health over time. Sounds solid, right? The problem is that he is a guard who does not actually guard anyone. Instead of protecting allies, Dracula focuses on dealing damage, and unfortunately, he is not particularly good at that either. His self-sustain comes from demon energy charges, but only when that gauge is completely full, which often means he is already halfway to the grave before it ever kicks in. Next up is Orpheus, the arcane web phantom assault character who looks flashy and promises chaos. Their improv performance skill can deal area of effect damage and even triggers automatically when Orpheus gets attacked, which feels great when it works. Sadly, even under perfect conditions, the damage usually ends up feeling underwhelming. To make things worse, a big part of Orpheus's kit only works if enemies are already infected, and Orpheus has no way to apply infect themselves. The Zeal stacks from their passive also give fairly weak bonuses, making Orpheus feel like a much worse version of Michael, but without the payoff. Then we have Bathory, another member of the reclusive kindred, this time filling the control role. She can apply bleed and attack down to enemies, and these effects give her Fire of Flames stacks. Once those stacks reach maximum, they explode into true damage and prevent enemies from taking action for 2 turns, which sounds absolutely terrifying. In theory, Bathory has incredible potential and looks like a control monster waiting to happen. In practice though, Bathory lives and dies by randomness. Her entire kit depends on successfully applying bleed, and that effect only has a 40% chance to trigger. This means some fights she feels amazing, locking down enemies and blowing them up, and in other fights she does almost nothing while you stare at the screen wondering what went wrong. Being this dependent on luck makes her unreliable, especially in harder content where consistency matters the most. So overall, these C-tier characters are not broken, unusable, or unplayable. They just sit in that awkward middle ground where they have higher stats thanks to being high rarity units, but they still do not justify heavy investment. If you like their designs or personalities, you can make them work, but if you are aiming for efficiency in Twilight Chronicle, your resources are probably better spent elsewhere. The characters in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Darktide, Albert, Ada, Timplate, Kira, Heidi, Valentine, Jacob, Teresa, and Uncle Ying. Alright, now we are stepping into B tier, and this is where things start getting interesting. These characters are genuinely good in Twilight Chronicle, but they either need the right team setup to really shine, or they do their job well but get overshadowed by higher tier options. Think of them as strong specialists with a few personality quirks. Darktide is one of those characters that makes you double check his class because he hits way harder than a guard has any right to. He stacks sigil on enemies to slow them down, steals their critical strike chance, and somehow still pumps out impressive damage. When his health drops low, Reaper's power kicks in, boosting his critical damage and healing him at the end of each turn, which feels incredibly clutch when it activates at the right moment. That said, Darktide has a risky lifestyle, Both his skill and ultimate literally cost him health points to use, meaning he can accidentally delete himself if you are not paying attention. Without a dedicated healer babysitting him, he can go from unstoppable menace to, why did my tank just die, real fast. Albert is the definition of a comfort pick. He throws out strong shields, gives allies a final damage boost, and increases their resistance to negative effects, which makes your team feel much safer overall. He is especially nice in longer fights where consistent protection matters more than flashy plays. However, Albert's personal damage is basically non-existent, and his shields do not stack. This can lead to awkward moments where he shields someone who already has protection, wasting value. He does his job well, but he is very much a one-trick pony. Ada is one of those characters that quietly wins fights for you over time. Her damage ramps up as the battle goes on, and she applies both critical damage down and attack down to enemies, massively reducing how much damage your team takes. Once she gets going, fights start feeling way more controlled. The downside is that Ada needs a bit of time to fully come online. Her true damage potential only shines once enemies are properly debuffed, which means that early turns can feel slow. Thankfully, she can apply those debuffs herself, so she is reliable, just not explosive. Tinplate is a classic protector who takes his job very seriously. He redirects damage from allies to himself and can taunt enemies, forcing them to use basic attacks on him instead of nuking your damage dealers. In terms of pure disruption and protection, he does exactly what you want a guard to do. The issue is that protection is all Tinplate brings to the table. His damage is extremely low, and he offers zero buffs to his allies. Compared to other tanks who protect and enhance the team, Tinplate starts to feel a bit outdated. Kira is a focused assassin who always has her eyes on one target. Her assassinate passive makes her lock onto a specific enemy, dealing bonus damage, while her skill and ultimate apply scratch stacks that reduce enemy defense. She is excellent at deleting priority targets if left unchecked. The awkward part is that Kira does not really synergize with her faction's main mechanic, which is Infect. While she works perfectly fine on her own, building a cohesive team around her can feel clunky compared to other Arcane Web Phantom units. Heidi is your reliable, no-nonsense healer. Her skill heals the entire team, while her ultimate brings the lowest health ally back to full health, which can completely save a run. On top of that, she applies Infection Potion to strong allies, allowing them to heal themselves when attacking. The problem is that Heidi is very straightforward. She heals, and that is mostly it. She does not bring unique buffs or utility, and once you unlock stronger healers like Raphael, she starts feeling a bit replaceable. Valentine is pure chaos for enemies with low health. His passive straight up executes any enemy left at 15% health or lower, and his ultimate resets and triggers again if it gets a kill. When things line up, he can wipe entire teams on his own. But Valentine is extremely selfish. He brings almost zero utility beyond raw damage, and while that damage is insane, other assassins offer similar output with extra team benefits. He is not bad at all, just very one-dimensional. Jacob is the kind of guard that enemies absolutely hate. He automatically targets the enemy with the highest attack, heals himself based on damage dealt, and is surprisingly hard to kill. He feels like a brick wall that refuses to go down. That said, Jacob does not really help the team beyond being that wall. No buffs, no crowd control, no fancy tricks, just survivability. He is solid, but not exciting. Teresa is a support who mixes healing with utility. Her heals apply a critical strike buff to allies and can also cleanse negative effects, which is incredibly valuable in certain matchups where debuffs are everywhere. Her weakness is coverage. Teresa's heals do not affect many allies at once, which puts her at a disadvantage compared to healers who can stabilize the whole team more efficiently. She is strong, just situational. Finally, Uncle Ying is the definition of high potential, high chaos. He scales throughout the fight thanks to amulet stacks that boost his skill damage, and he can apply sigil to enemies to slow them down. In longer battles, he can become a serious threat. Unfortunately, Uncle Ying attacks random targets every time. Sometimes he deletes the perfect enemy, and other times he hits the least important target on the field. Using him often feels like rolling dice and hoping luck is on your side. The characters in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Renace, Arthur, Asmodan, Mastian, Aurora, Yinggu, Lilith, Sherry, Isabella, Elegy, and Garvin. Now, we are firmly in A tier, where characters stop asking politely and start demanding a spot on your team. These are the units that consistently perform, bring either ridiculous damage or top tier utility, and often end up being the backbone of most successful Twilight Chronicle lineups. They may not break the game like S-tier monsters, but they absolutely carry their weight. Renae's is the kind of assassin that starts strong and somehow keeps getting stronger without ever slowing down. As the fight goes on, she builds momentum stacks that boost her attack, critical chance, critical damage, and lifesteal, and once fully stacked, she even becomes immune to control effects. At that point, stopping her becomes more of a suggestion than an option. What really pushes Renae's into A-tier territory is her counterattack mechanic. Every time an ally gets hit, she strikes back, applying holy seals that deal true damage and quash stacks that increase the damage enemies take. Even when it is not her turn, Renae's is still actively punishing the enemy team. Arthur is control done right, with 0 wasted buttons. He deals consistent damage while applying bind with every attack, preventing enemies from using their skills and making fights feel way more manageable. On top of that, his damage based on current enemy health keeps him relevant even against tanky targets. Things get scary when bind stacks start getting removed. Each removed stack gives Arthur Apocalypse stacks, boosting his speed and effect hit rate while firing cross darts that deal heavy damage and apply holy seals. The more the enemy struggles to break free, the worse it gets for them. Asmodan is proof that sometimes the best defense really is offense. Instead of shielding allies or taunting enemies, he protects the team by absolutely crushing the opposing side. His damage scales with enemy health, and cursed armor increases the damage your entire team deals to affected targets. If that was not enough, Undying Demon Lord lets Asmodan refuse death once per battle. He revives with restored health and immediately punishes the enemy with a fresh ultimate, turning what should have been a victory into a very bad mistake. Aurora is a clean and reliable magic damage dealer who rewards consistency. Every attack applies light trace stacks, increasing the magic damage enemies take, which means she is not just strong on her own, but also enables other magic users on the team. Once light trace is applied, Aurora starts dealing bonus, true damage on every hit, and her ultimate adds holy seals into the mix. She snowballs fights quietly but efficiently, and before you realize it, the enemy team is already collapsing. Yinggu is an absolute dream for infect-based teams. She can apply infect herself and then deal bonus true damage based on how many stacks enemies have, making her both an enabler and a finisher. The more infect on the field, the happier she gets. Her synergy goes even further thanks to her faithful bond with Ling. Both units gain a flat attack bonus, turning them into a terrifying duo that melts teams faster than most compositions can respond. Lilith is a ruthless control unit who specializes in cleaning up the battlefield. She deals heavy damage, applies infect, and always targets the lowest health enemy, making sure no one escapes just because they were ignored. Her Surging Desire. That passive massively boosts her damage against low health enemies, and her ultimate Evernight Return splashes damage onto other enemies if it secures a kill. Lilith does not just finish fights, she accelerates them. Alucard thrives on chaos and bleeding enemies dry, literally. He prioritizes low defense targets, applies bleed, and boosts his own critical rate, making him extremely effective against squishy enemies. Every bleed stack applied by anyone fuels his bloodlust stacks, increasing his attack and crit rate. Once he hits 10 stacks, he enters Demonkin form, removing his ultimate cooldown and turning the fight into a very short horror movie. Sherry is one of those supports that makes you question why she hits so hard. She applies bleed to all enemies with her skill, perfectly fitting into reclusive kindred teams, and her ultimate fully heals the entire party while granting a critical rate buff. On top of that, she boosts allies' basic attack damage passively and deals impressive damage herself. Her hex stacks detonate for true damage, meaning Sherry somehow manages to heal, buff, and delete enemies at the same time. Isabella is a walking area of effect nuke. Her ultimate deals massive damage that scales with enemy health, making her terrifying against tanky teams. Her skill already hits hard and adds bleed on top, keeping pressure constant. After using her ultimate, she shields herself, giving her strong self-sustain. As long as she has a shield, she gains bonus damage equal to 20% of the enemy's health, regardless of where the shield comes from, which is just unfair in the best way. Rose is pure aggression wrapped in blades. She delivers excellent single target and area damage, and every time she kills an enemy, she triggers extra basic attacks, allowing her to chain kills rapidly. She builds chill stacks with every attack, gaining even more after kills. These stacks can trigger Bloodthirst Twin Blades, causing all allies to launch a basic attack. When Rose pops off, the entire team joins the frenzy. Elegy is what happens when critical hits become a lifestyle. Almost everything he does boosts his critical rate, making consistent critical strikes the norm rather than the exception. His sniper focus stacks further increase critical damage and rate, and every critical hit applies sigil, slowing enemies down. Since he crits constantly, this utility is almost always active, making Elegy both deadly and disruptive. Finally, Garvin is a tank who refuses to be boring. He applies Radiant Holy Shield to himself and the ally who needs it most, absorbing damage and reducing the chance of receiving critical hits. Despite being a defensive unit, his ultimate hits incredibly hard and scales with his maximum health, which he has plenty of. He also applies critical damage down to enemies, proving that Garvin protects the team while still punching holes in the enemy lineup. The characters in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Luna, Sariel, Van Helsing, Ling, Raphael, Michael, and Adele. This is S tier, where balance stops being a suggestion and starts being a warning label. These are the meta-defining characters of Twilight Chronicle, the kind of units that make any team better the moment they show up. It does not matter if you are early game, mid game, or deep into endgame content. These characters always deliver. Luna has pure, unapologetic damage from start to finish. She dishes out true damage with both her skill and ultimate, while constantly applying holy seals that explode for even more true damage when triggered. Enemies do not just lose health against Luna, they lose hope. What truly pushes her into S tier is her Moonlight Mark mechanic. Every time an ally takes an action, Luna gains a stack, and once she reaches 15, she unleashes a massive burst of damage to all enemies. These periodic explosions turn long fights into highlight reels. Sariel is, without exaggeration, the best defensive unit in the entire game. His Holy Light Guardian skill shields both himself and the most fragile ally on the team, instantly stabilizing even the scariest situations. He goes even further by applying Holy Guardian to the whole team, restoring health every turn and lowering the enemy's critical hit chance. Add in a massive attack reduction debuff on enemies, and Sariel turns dangerous encounters into slow, harmless struggles. Van Helsing believes in ending fights before they even begin. He always attacks first, opening the battle with Firepower Barrage to deal devastating area of effect damage that can straight up delete weaker enemies on turn 1. Outside of that opener, he remains incredibly consistent. His fast basic attacks are enhanced through Holy Silver Bolt stacks, while Rapid Fire charges up for massive bursts. Van Helsing does not rely on luck, he relies on overwhelming firepower. Ling is a walking catastrophe for the enemy team. She deals huge upfront damage to multiple targets while applying Infect, which deals brutal damage over time that scales directly with her attack stat. Her Demon Blade Soulcross passive takes things to another level. Each Infect application increases her attack, activates Demon Blade Domain to reduce enemy damage output, and eventually even triggers a free ultimate. Ling does not just scale, she snowballs out of control. Raphael is the reason defeat feels optional. She is hands down the best healer in Twilight Chronicle, with short cooldowns that affect the entire team and make wiping almost impossible. She prioritizes allies with the lowest health, builds mercy stacks to further boost her healing, and even provides passive healing while doing so. And if all that somehow fails, she can revive fallen allies by consuming those stacks, turning losses into comebacks. Michael is the embodiment of divine judgment. She delivers absurd area of effect damage with purifying light strike and terrifying single target damage with Sheen Verdict, which also strips enemies of all their buffs. Every attack applies holy seals, and each application grants her apotheosis stacks. These stacks increase her attack and defense, grant defense ignore, and make her immune to control effects. The longer Michael stays on the field, the less fair the fight becomes. Finally, Adele is surgical, precise, and absolutely lethal. She prioritizes enemies with the lowest defense, applies sigil on every attack, slows them down, and triggers bursts of true damage once those stacks are maxed. Critical strikes are her fuel. Every critical hit activates Demon Slay, granting her an extra attack and calm stacks that boost her critical chance and damage. As the fight goes on, Adele ramps into an unstoppable execution machine, sealing her place firmly in S tier. The video ends here. See you in another video. Don't forget to subscribe.